Welcome to Gamebird Spotlight, an occasional production of the North American Gamebird Association. I'm joined today by our Executive Director, Rob Sexton, and we are going to talk about a wrap-up for 2022 and where we're going in 2023. Oftentimes at the end of the year, we sit down and we make a whole bunch of resolutions. And by January 6th, we've usually broken them all and moved on to other things. I do not make resolutions. I make lists, I make plans, I make goals. And one of the tools that we use for establishing goals is making sure that they are SMART goals, that they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed, that there is a time when you're going to accomplish this. So some of the things that I'm looking at as the president of the North American Gamebird for the next year and a little bit more is what went well, what can we do better, and to help our members think about things that they really need to put into practice for this next year. So one thing that we have talked about till we're blue in the face is a biosecurity plan. Rob, how many years have we been talking about this?
I would say we started talking about it in earnest, beginning in 2015 probably. So it's probably been 7 years. So you would have thought you would not come across anyone in our industry who did not at this point have a biosecurity plan. But as I'm sure you're going to talk about, we found out over the last few months that there are still some out there who have not gotten this vital step taken care of.
Every once in a while, we come across a customer, a member of NAGA, or somebody in the Gamebird industry that says, wait a minute, what? I'm supposed to have a biosecurity plan? And my reaction is, how can you not know? We have had articles in NAGA News. We've had even live streams on it not too long ago. We have had mailings. I mean, we've just done tons of stuff over the last 5 to 7 years on this topic. So
yeah, there's this rule that they told us in advertising work, that about the time that you're sick of your message is when some of your audience is actually processing it for the first time. And that occurred to me when you brought this topic up. We've been harping about this for 7 years, but just as you say, I've encountered people even the last month or so, oh my gosh, yeah, we don't have a biosecurity plan.
Right.
And
all right. So in some
me.
of the material we've had, there's a kind of a dividing line between when you need to have it approved and when you should have it reviewed. And that line is 25,000 birds. So if you raise more than that, you need to have your plan approved by your your state agency, whether that is your agricultural association, whoever administers your NPIP program. So,
right.
And the two things I encourage people to do is get it on paper. You have to have it on paper to get it approved or reviewed. And Abby, I mess up her name because her email is not the same as her last name. So Abby from Wisconsin has offered to review that for people who are not required to have it reviewed by their state agency. They should have it in paper, and more than having it on paper, they should have it in practice, not only for the leaders of their organization, whether it's the farm or the hunt club, but the workers need to have it reviewed and understand, how do we implement this and keep it going.
Right. That's right. Abby Schuft.
Thank you.
That was the name you're looking for.
She's going to change the name for me.
She is, she's with the University of Minnesota, actually. And she's a great resource for members of NAGA that are willing to take advantage of it. She's willing to look at your plan and, give you pointers on how you can improve it. So I really think that's just a resource that people ought to take advantage of.
Right. I would really love to have her come to one of our conventions and set up a room with a Dutch entry system.
Right.
Dutch or Danish, I always forget which one it is. It starts with a D, but to set it up and tell people, show them how to work through that. I think that would be a great hands-on seminar that we should
Yes,
do.
I agree.
All right, but once somebody has a biosecurity plan in place, if they have an incident within their state or within their controlled area, but they want to move birds, NAGA has worked with the USDA to set up something called a SUGS plan.
Right.
So one of the other goals, okay, besides having a biosecurity plan on paper and in place, reviewing the SUGS plan and knowing how they would move their birds securely if there's an outbreak. So speak
Right.
to that, Rob, for me, okay?
Sure. So to start off with, you can find the Secure Upland Game Bird Supply Plan, which is what SUGS stands for. You can find the SUGS plan at secureuplandgamebirdsupply.com. And this is about a 6-year project. Most of the work has been done by our friends at the University of Minnesota, led by Dr. Carol Cardona and her team, where they lay out the risk factors and what we do to mitigate against them. The document is extremely valuable in demonstrating to your state veterinarians that we take biosecurity very seriously. And that's critical because ultimately, in the event of an outbreak, it is a state veterinarian who will determine whether or not you're able to move birds or not. And so, in addition to USDA, we need to make sure that we're able to convince our own states or the states that we ship to that we're good actors, right, in the community. And so, the SUGS plan will tell you all the information you need in terms of permit guidance and the things you can and cannot do depending on where you are in proximity to an outbreak. And it's just a valuable tool. Uh, and if this is a list of SMART goals, then I would say this SMART goal is go to the website, secureuplandgamebirdsupply.com, and review it from top to bottom. It won't take you 4 hours, but it might take you a good 45 minutes to peruse it and become familiar with it.
And it's 45 minutes that may save your business when there is an issue with this recurring nightmare that we have called avian influenza.
Right, right. And if I could, Peg, if I could just tag team onto that for just a moment, one of the other things that we discovered this year, we had a few game bird farms that got infected and had to depopulate, and so finding game birds was a challenge. And so we found some farms that were willing to sell birds, but a number of them were not NPIP, which again, same thing, right? I mean, if you're going to protect yourself, you really need to be NPIP in today's day and age. It's required if you're going to get indemnity anyway. But
okay, so
why haven't people done
for
that?
anybody who has never heard those terms before, NPIP means National Poultry Improvement Plan. It is the game bird, not even game bird. It is the poultry plan across the United States in conjunction with the USDA, right?
Right.
Where you are testing your birds, you are compliant with certain protocols, you make sure that your birds are tested regularly, and you're a good guy. You're on the good list, right?
That's a good way to put it. I look at it like it's the good housekeeping seal of approval, right? So a couple of the folks I spoke to who were looking to move birds, they were not NPIP, and therefore they could not ship their birds into various states because most states won't allow a bird to come in that's not. And so they were able to get their NPIP certification in relatively short order. And so, for people who listen to this, if you're not an NPIP participant, you ought to get involved. It would be well worth your time.
To put it in perspective of a household, how many of us would want to eat uninspected meat? How many of us would want to eat food or vegetables that came from questionable sources? Yep. Those industries all have protocols to make sure that the food and the movement of animals or vegetables is done in a proper way.
Yep. Yep. And it just makes all the sense in the world. So, much like 2014 and 15 did for us, this latest 2022-23 avian influenza, it's just reminding everybody we got to tighten up our ship. It could literally determine whether you're able to stay in business.
Okay, so with the NPIP program, you have regular testing. So if you're a member of the NPIP program, then I would suggest everybody has, almost everybody, unless you're one of those who's a dedicated notebook person, has some kind of a reminder system. On our phones, we've got a calendar. So you set up a reminder every 90 days to have your birds tested and adhere to that. It's not rocket science. You take a swab, you go down so many birds' mouth, come up across the roof of their mouth. You take it's a strep test. Basically, we've had a doctor swab our throat. That's basically what you're doing to the birds. Those swabs are taken to a state lab, and within a day or two, you find out whether your birds are okay.
Yep.
That's not a hard thing to do. It doesn't cost other than the cost of maintaining your membership in the program.
Something that you made me think of when you said that is, we have this phrase, or we used to have this phrase, I've got so-and-so on speed dial, right? I've got Peg Ballou on speed dial. Well, let's talk about who you ought to have on speed dial for just a moment. So what lab are you going to send those test results to? That ought to be on speed dial, right? You ought to know who the person is you're going to contact. If you walk outside to your pens and you see suspicious things going on and you need to get to the bottom of it, who are you going to call? And
it's not going to be Ghostbusters.
Right. And we don't want to have to dig for that information and research that information. They ought to already be in that phone that you were holding up a moment ago, right? You mentioned a minute ago getting to know your various officials, right? Your NPIP officials should be on speed dial.
And that would be one of those goals for next year, that you're going to meet your state vet if you don't know him. We knew ours. We had a tentative relationship with ours, and then he died. And we've got a new guy in. It wasn't us. We didn't do it. But we have a new one, and he is unknown to us. He is a factor. We need to spend the time and get to know him. Same thing with your congressman and all of that, having those people in a relationship, knowing who your DNR people are, all those kind of things. But especially this year, get to know your state vet.
Yep. And so if you would go through a list of things you need to be prepared for and who those relationships are, and you've already got their email addresses and you've already got their telephone numbers, these things can save you precious time, because if the worst occurs, you're spending hours digging for information that you could have already had stored in your phone. It could definitely be costly.
Right. All right. So next thing on my list is, with a measurable goal, would be to attend the annual convention. This year we're in New Orleans, which is exciting for me because that's where Sam and I started out. We had an 8-month-old baby, came with our partners at that point. I spent a lot of time walking the halls with the cranky baby, but I got to meet people, experience the convention. It was awesome. Now we go back to that spot, and it's exciting for me to do that. So we've had our information on our website for a while. We've had some glitch with the registration system. So now we are working through you, Rob.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. Right.
To register. If you want to register, at the bottom of the screen, rob@northamericangamebird.com is the email address to contact Rob and say, hey, I got Sam and I, we want to do the raffle tickets. We want to do the banquet tickets. We'll be there all 3 days. Sign us up. He will contact Karen, our bookkeeper, or a financial administrative assistant, whatever you want to call her. and make sure that you get an invoice for that. So everything is in place when you get to the convention. You do have to book your rooms. Normally, we would see a $25 increase as of tomorrow, but for a limited time only, we've extended the early bird registration for one more week until January 7th. At midnight, January 7th, this goes away. You'll have to pay $25 more. So get ahead now and make that registration.
Yeah, it's going to be a great convention. You mentioned the city and the location. We're staying at a great hotel right in the heart of the French Quarter. So lots to see and do, and of course, some good Cajun food. The agenda itself is jam-packed. One thing I would really like to point out to people is this. Lots of times I will promote various agenda items. This time I'm going to promote something that's a little more informal. We've got a number of people who are attending who have been impacted by avian flu this year, and they have learned a ton
Right. On
about
the
how
front
to get.
lines, in the trenches.
Yes. I mean, they've learned all the unknowns. If I asked any of our members today, how would you depopulate? How would you dispose of all the carcasses?
Right.
How would you do those things? Well, you're going to have people at the convention who you can talk to about what exactly they've done.
Right.
And you can also have conversations about how you're going to ship and receive birds in the near future, right? Because you're trying to erase contact points in which you could transfer the disease. So, how a farm transfers birds to a hunting club, what
Right. I
protocols they
think
have.
we're going to see things change. We
Yeah.
are at a critical point. What is the word I've used is sea change. Before COVID-19, people thought it was macho to go to work sick. And it is no longer acceptable to go to work sick. If you're sick, stay home.
Mm-hmm.
We have now for so long thought, well, I'm going to get all my birds from one producer. And now we're saying, well, maybe that's not the smartest. We're rethinking all of these. This is where people are going to touch each other and come up with those relationships that, hey, I've met this person, I've seen what they do, I'm going to go with them. We need to be doing that more than ever. It's the personal relationships we establish with this. I think that's going to change.
They really matter. And it also allows you to weigh the pros and cons, because certainly there's been a lot of folks talking about, they need more than one supplier. On the other hand, others have rightly pointed out that the more people you bring in, that's,
right.
additional touch points for the possibility of transmitting the
Right.
disease. And so these are all
Additional
things that you
risk.
can talk about. Yes. And one of the things that really saved our industry during the 14-15 outbreaks is we had very little contact outside of our own customers, right?
Right.
There wasn't a lot of transportation between the various game bird farms and that sort of thing. And so those are things folks are going to have to think about when they weigh the risks, as you say. But at the convention in New Orleans, there's going to be a house full of people that can have these frank discussions and walk away smarter and more prepared about what to do.
That's right. I know we've got some great seminars, and we've listed all of those, I believe, on our website, what the agenda is. We have a committee that works hard to get relevant topics on the agenda. And then these people who come are top notch. I mean, it's not a garage sale agenda. It is good quality stuff. So on our to-do list with our SMART goals and everything, I'm asking the people who are listening to think about this and work this next year to get one more member into the association. You all have people who you're dealing with all the time, and for some reason they have not thought about it. Well, most of the time people don't join something because they're not asked. And I don't know all your clients. I don't know all your touch points, as you've talked about, the people that you deal with. So you have the unique opportunity, all you who are watching in, just get one more member in. And if everybody got one more member in, we would double our impact on the political front, on our knowledge front, all the way through. So again, I really encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
other points I had for this next year is one, you're going to need to set your prices. That'll be a point that we'll talk about at the convention, I'm sure. Setting prices and getting contracts on the birds. Yes, things happened this year, but getting your plans in place for this next year, it's coming fast. So we
Yes.
need to be ready.
Hey, Peg, when we talk about prices, I think it's important to think about that from both segments, right? Of course, producers need to think about what they're going to charge to sell birds to hunting clubs and preserves, but even the preserves themselves, how much you charge for a hunt,
Right.
right? There's lots of folks who are just so reluctant to raise prices. All my prices have
Mm-hmm.
always been this, my prices have always been that.
Yep.
But the fact is, everyone understands in today's world that prices have gone up because input costs have gone up and you need
Yes.
to price accordingly.
Mm-hmm. That's right. How many of us have gone to go get eggs this last week
Ooh,
to make
yeah.
Christmas cookies?
Yeah.
And I remember what, 2 years ago they were 99 cents a dozen. I believe they're 3.50, if not more.
Right.
And that is a shocker.
Yeah.
Getting PVC pipe to hold up our netting in the pens used to be used to be less than $5, 4.50-ish, and they are now 15. Getting things. So networking with other people, setting up these relationships, it's just necessary. We
Yeah.
need to band together as an organization so much the more.
Absolutely. And your association does a lot that really matters. One of the things we'll talk about at the convention is the work that NAGA did to help USD establish new indemnity values,
Right.
which of course is the money that USDA pays a farm that is impacted by avian influenza. And I mean, literally, it's the lifeblood. If you're the one impacted, it could really save you. And uh, we were able to do that because of the input we got from our members, right? And
Right.
the money that we got from our members in membership is what helped pay our legal counsel, for example, to help us, frame our argument for why we wanted indemnity to work the way it does. And so, more members means more clout politically, as you say. It means more finances so that we can do the job that we're supposed to do. And it also means we're all banded together tighter so we can communicate and share information to help us survive the tough times.
That sums it up wonderfully. By the way, Rob, I love the shirt.
Oh yes, we color
So,
color coordinated.
yeah. Well,
Yes.
Buffalo Plaid's been a great thing this year, and I like it.
All right.
We're digging out from the mud after the snow. We feel for those folks who are in Buffalo or other areas that have been highly affected. We feel for our members who are possibly traveling these last few days with the airline snafus. We feel for them, others who have been going through tough times this year. If you are new to this broadcast, please like and share and look back through the other Game Bird Spotlights. I have one called When It Isn't the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. We've had several members who have gone through very tough times. Our hearts are going out to them, those who have lost loved ones, those who have lost birds because of the diseases. We feel for you. We're on your side, and you are not alone. So with
Yeah.
that, Rob, any last minute, any kind of words of summing up anything that you would like?
Well, I really like that you ended up on the note of all the folks that our hearts and prayers go out to. I know we had some members who had pins go down over ice and snow during
Yeah.
this really bad cold snap, and that's tough also. So,
And that
it's,
doesn't make the news. That doesn't make, NBC or whatever you're watching. So we know that, but we who are in the industry feel for you. And we've seen our members come together and provide birds for some of the clubs that were affected because of the loss of birds. We've seen people, it's like the cattle people who bring bales of straw or whatever. We truly are not only in the same occupation, but we're friends for a lot of it. We're competitors, but we're friendly competitors.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate your time. And thank you all for watching in. And we wish you a wonderful and happy and prosperous 2023.